There are many, because it's very like, I won't say like premature is the word, but it's still a pretty like young landscape. So I think there's a lot of things that, you have leaders in the club that pick up either from, if they're professional athletes, they learn some things that works for them, they bring it in. And then it can kind of become a bit too performance oriented sometimes, or a bit too like, the culture of a club sometimes can then forget, like you're just focusing on the sport so much, you forget about the people element. And then you lose the whole, the focus is the people, I think, and the sport, but the people more so. So I think like some clubs may end up focusing a lot on like performance, and then you just really forego, like you forget about the people who are the most key part to the performance. Whereas some other clubs, you might be overly social, because Hong Kong is such a, like accessible place. You could be like doing 10 different events in the week, and then you could still have an obligation to play for your club on the weekend. And then sometimes you might just be overly social, and then you just can't really balance it all too well and, perform on game day on the weekend. But then there are some clubs, I guess, also that do have a good balance where you respect that people have obligations to be social in the week, like for work or just personal choices. You can be social. And then you kind of do strike an okay respect and an okay balance. And I think like that can be achieved when you have a diversity. If you're just strictly, being proud of just being, a certain type of, of a characteristic of a club, then I think you miss out on the diversity. And I think if you have the diversity, you then build onto the respect and then the celebration of cultures and differences, which is what I think like our club has. And so I've been there for a very long time, and over a decade, and hopefully will continue to contribute in other ways.
How do you even find a club to join?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like that concept is actually really interesting. Like, so how did you find the club? How do you, like there's quite a number of clubs in Hong Kong too, right? There's like, and they, they're just more like, I guess even from the base, right? Because I actually, speaking person, I actually don't really get it sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think like a lot of resources are there only if you're actually, for the right place to look at, right? And then, so usually like I think sporting bodies in Hong Kong would have a page where they like publish, the different sports clubs that there are. So be it like football or softball or any other sport. Like if you went on to like the main union body or a sporting organization body, you'll be able to retrieve like different clubs that could be based off of different districts, or again, like there could be clubs set up from different reasoning and purposes as well. So like from me, the way I found it was like a summer course. It was a newspaper advert, rocked up, and then since then actually played rugby in a local club for the first few years, and everyone spoke Cantonese, and that's kind of where I picked up a bit of Cantonese. But again, what you realize is all you really need is your basic skills to perform. Like you can learn from, without necessarily having the language, you could still learn. And so, so I found it on an advert actually, like a physical newspaper that I was reading as a kid. But nowadays, I think like social media is being used quite a bit, where clubs are putting themselves out there, and like doing more work with their sponsors or doing more community work in general, so that you kind of push your organization/business out there for people to find out about you. Yeah, I don't know if that helps answer like how people can find out, but yeah.
I think it's cool. Like I like the idea that you're like we're just like looking at the news as a kid and it's like.
Yeah, like a kid's newspaper. Yeah.
Well, like that, and like as like an inflection point, right? It's like quite serendipitous, and I think it's cool that like that's how they do it in Hong Kong. It's just quite different. I think it's
very old school way for sure, but then I think now, how do people find out? That would be an interesting way apart from social media. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Like when you were describing the three different types of clubs that exist, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe a little difficult for you to gauge, but what do you think the majority of clubs tend to skew towards in Hong Kong? Are they more liberal? Are they more professional? Like, how would you place the majority of clubs? Like, for someone walking in, what should they be expecting? Should they be expecting, there's some level of professionalism where they'll push you, whereas,
Yeah, I think even in the last 5 years, I think it's changed to a more professional level. I think naturally, as the level of sports increases within the city and the standards increase globally, I think clubs are starting to take it upon them to kind of level up. And then we've seen like some really cool stories of like Hong Kong players who grew up here, expats, but still grew up through, they're products of this system in a way.
Yep.
And they've gone out to play, like, I guess, like for France, for even women and men, like gone out to play internationally. And I think like they get picked up from the youth ranks, but their youth ranks, they're performing mostly here. And then, so I think like it has picked up quite a bit, like seen a lot of good success stories of players going out and still being able to like further develop their, playing careers. So I think like I wouldn't want to make it sound like not approachable, but there are good systems once you come in. Like, there are also summer courses beforehand where you could still join as a taster. And if you're a newcomer into the scene, like they'll obviously know how to welcome you in. And if you classify yourself as a, just a social player trying to keep fit, learn the sport, then there'll be like a second or third team to also fit into in that way. Whereas like there's also like performance premiership teams to kind of, if that's your scene and you're an amazing soccer player, but you want to learn how to play rugby now and you think you've got transferable skills, like I think there's room for those kind of demographics of people who actually want to come in and perform as well. I think what's really cool, I don't know if this helps with this, but I think it's amazing that Hong Kong now has, we're driving for like female imports to come in, at least in rugby. Previously, it was mostly men that have been getting imported like from overseas countries to play and level up standard here. So I think now like getting female imports, like seeing local clubs get female imports, I think that's really cool because you realize there's a lot of exchange now that you can get from, them coming in, helping you learn different things culturally, but also like through the play of the sport, but also, just helps you level up as a whole. So I think like to answer your question, I think they should expect that there is a level of, professionalism that is there now. And I think it's only going to pick up hopefully more. But there's still room for, just learning the sport and also being a social player. Yeah.
Can I ask you a bit